Hi, I'm Talisa, the owner of 10x Marketing Consultancy, where we help businesses to 10x their lead generation with content marketing strategies.
I'm Josh from Big Sky Creative. Since 2011, we've been helping brands grow online through creative video content.
And I'm James, and I've worked in audio my whole life, and now I run Sound Media, where we help brands to create amazing podcasts for their business. Together, we want to help you create better content. Welcome to Content360. Today then we are talking about email marketing. We're going to be taking a look at a few do's and don'ts of email marketing. First of all, I think it's a good idea for us to just kind of set the scene a little bit about what those different kind of types of email marketing are. Talisa, you are very much our expert on this one. Talk us through then different forms of email marketing.
Yeah, so I'd probably class them. This class is like three different ones, really, I would say. So first one is your typical like newsletter value-added content. So maybe people want to send out a monthly newsletter. Some people go as far as, weekly ones. But something that's not necessarily going in for a hard sell at all. It's just offering, advice, how-to, tips, what I'd class as value-added content. The second one is, your sales, more promotional style emails. They might be a bit more frequent, particularly good for B2C style businesses. And then finally, it's then kind of like automation style emails, which goes down a whole different rabbit hole in itself. Right. But obviously it is email marketing still, it's just on an automated kind of sequence.
I suspect we'll probably touch on all three of those types in some way or another as we get into the discussion. But to start with, you've pulled together a couple of do's and a couple of don'ts just to try and get our brains working a little bit and see where that conversation takes us. So the first do is the word personalise.
Yes. So I think in every form of marketing, if you personalise it to the audience it's speaking to, obviously it usually performs higher and engagement's better. So within email marketing, there's various different ways to personalise your email. It can be in the subject line, so it could have your name in there, which might provoke you to open that email more. Or it could be personalisation within the actual text in the email itself. So it could be directed to you. It might even be other things. If it is a B2C style business and you've got a lot of data on someone, such as like birthdays or what they've been purchasing, you could start to add that personalisation into the email as well. So it's great. It is a great tool. It is known that if you are personalising a subject line, open rates are higher. Right. So in terms of like an industry average, your open rates, you should be aiming towards 15 to 20% open rate on emails. And click-through, which is obviously if anyone clicks on the email and diverts somewhere else, that should be around 5%, which it does seem low in grand scheme of things, but that is kind of the industry standard. And what you need for trying to achieve. So hopefully by, if your open rates are dipping, personalisation is a great tool. There's many platforms that allows you to add personalisation very easily. So insert name or insert company name, anything like that you can do. So they all provide the tools to do it. It's just making sure you do it correctly and making sure the data in your platform's correct, because there's nothing worse than you adding personalisation in, and it says hi John when the person's actually not called John, and they're thinking, you've sent me this by mistake. So you've got to use it with care.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say when this it's kind of semi-automated personalisation, isn't it? When it first started to become a thing, I used to get a few emails that was, hi, first name.
Yes, and that's where it's gone wrong. Yeah. Now, hopefully, if the person didn't have a first name in the data, it would just say hi. But then it's where people put a comma at the end. Yeah. And then you see the comma and you're like, oh, well, there's something meant to be there. So it's just being careful and just doing lots of testing as well whilst you're in, before it's been sent.
Okay, good tips. That's going to move on to our second do, because you just hinted at it there, which is that subject of testing.
Yes. And what I mean by testing as well is there's various different types. For example, subject lines, there's A/B testing. So what that means is you might decide you've got two different subject lines for the email. And most platforms, again, it'll allow you to do this through an A/B style testing. So it'll send out one subject line to 10% of the audience, one subject line to the other 10. it looks at that open rate over, the first couple of hours, and then it'll say, okay, this one performed better in that couple of hours. Let's send the rest of the email campaign data with this subject line to, the 80% that's missing. So that's one form of testing. So that's really good. I'd always say any email that you do, add in at least 2 options, because, you're hoping to improve your rates. But then there is the other aspect of your actual design of your email as well. So you might decide, to choose different banners on different emails. It might be a bit of a different copy, even to the fact of HTML style emails compared to a plain text email. So there's different benefits there. Your HTML email is where it's very image focused. It looks promotional, it looks marketing, where HTML email, a plain text email, looks as though you've just naturally sent it through, Gmail, Outlook, and it does normally in platforms allow you to create the email together, look at the plain text version and look at the HTML version. But it's worthwhile testing which one performs better. Especially B2B, I'd say plain text ones perform better because you don't naturally look at it and think it's marketing, where B2C you do. So again, it's about testing what you actually want your message to say, and doing it in different variations. Again, coming back to call to actions, you might try, learn more, or find out, or read more, see which call to action buttons work better as well.
Some really interesting stuff in there, particularly that question about plain text emails. I never really kind of taken much notice of the emails that I get, but now when I think about it, and I think I probably am a little bit more responsive to something that's plain text, because
you naturally think it comes from that person.
Just a simple message, isn't it? And it does, that almost makes it feel that little bit more personal and that little bit more kind of real. And
again, it's coming back to what we've discussed quite a lot in this podcast. It's about knowing your audience and learning about what your audience likes and what they don't like. More you have of that, more you can implement it into email marketing.
Yeah, great thoughts. We've worked Lisa pretty hard in the first few minutes of the episode, so we need to carry this a little bit now. Josh, where do you stand on email marketing? Is it something that you do? Is it something that you've tried? Where are you?
So I'm very much, I would say I'm at the amateur side of the email marketing sort of journey. It's not something we've done a hell of a lot of. I think just down to the kind of clients we work with fewer clients, but on like longer kind of term relationships. But as we move to open our studio now and want to promote this space to other creatives and have more of a, maybe even a B2C kind of arm to our business, it's something we're starting to move into. So we have sent out our first few emails. We used lead magnets, going back to our previous episode, on YouTube to develop a bit of a mailing list. And now we are actually doing some of the testing to see, are people responding better to sort of behind the scenes content, or is it just the whole, here's another free download for you to get hold of? So we're kind of at that point. It's the beginning of our journey, and we're, if we're being honest, deciding whether to continue it ourselves or just outsource it to someone like yourself who knows a hell of a lot more about this than us. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, I suppose, if you ask me again in a few months' time as to how it's become a part of our promotion for the studio. Yeah,
and I think it'd be good to revisit that and see how you've got on with it actually, and how it's worked for you. I think I'm going to echo what you said in terms of, I guess I'm very much at the beginning of my kind of journey into email marketing. See the value in it very much, particularly for me, kind of with clients and maybe sharing tips and things like that there's a real sort of value in that. I think where I stand on it is it's one of those things that feels quite overwhelming when you're right at the beginning of it, because there'll be a lot of the things that we've talked about so far that will have gone over a lot of people's heads, that kind of like testing what does that even sort of mean. So it can feel quite a challenging kind of thing to get to grips with, can't it? It's
so big with so much potential. And even platform-wise, you can get quite simple platforms. You can get ones like ActiveCampaign, which is, you can do so much of it, and, you can just touch the iceberg, and there's so much more to go. So yeah, it's got so much potential. But again, I think if you are starting out with it, you've just got to take it one step at a time. A lot of my clients come to me who've never done, email marketing before, and they just say, actually, we just want to send out a monthly newsletter once a month that just adds some value and actually touches base with our clients in, another media format. And that, that works well. But then I've got, a B2C client that literally wants an email near enough out every single day with 5 different variations, multiple different testing options, and it can go round in a massive circle, even to the point of saying, okay, I want this email to go to males, I want this email to go to females, different talking, tones of voice. It can go very, very deep.
I suppose
it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry. I suppose a lot of the we were saying testing, all that kind of stuff. A lot of it is what people might already be doing with social ads.
Yeah.
You do different social ads, don't you? And you target different I can't even speak. Target different demographics with depending on what we're trying to sell. So a lot of it could be brought in across that. We keep saying B2C and B2B as well. So are the tips we're discussing, do they work across the board, or would you approach those differently?
Yeah, I'd say the tips so far definitely work across the board. I would say for B2C, you've probably got more personalisation options, because I'd expect you'd probably know a little bit more about them compared to a business. So you'd probably know, a birthday of someone, the gender, that kind of thing, where more business style emails, you've probably got company name, location, and a contact there. That kind of personalisation. So yeah, the tips go across the board, but there's probably more options with B2C email. The only downside of B2C email, it's harder in terms of like GDPR to actually collect data, because you've got to be more careful, where B2B style email campaigns, you can use like legitimate interest of your audience to send out emails for as well, but you've got to be a lot more careful in terms of people legitimately saying, I want to accept your emails from a B2C perspective.
There's a whole podcast in that, isn't
there? There is. GDPR, God, still haunts me. And what was it, like 3-4 years ago now? Yeah.
I do still sometimes get the odd email that doesn't have an unsubscribe link on it, and you kind of think, how many years into this are we now, and there's still people that are kind of failing on the most simple of tests. So I guess that's probably a little extra isn't it, is stay within the law. You don't want to, particularly for your business, you don't want to get a reputation as cutting corners, because that just doesn't represent you as a brand very well at all.
Yeah, and I think email marketing, people do see it as like a little bit of an invasion sometimes. So people can easily get wound up by receiving a lot of marketing emails. So it's, again, going back to your audience, what do they like, durations, timings, have they actively said they want to hear from you for this kind of content? So it's just being careful and considerate.
So we've done the do's. Now we need to do the don'ts. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we said do personalise, do test.
Yep.
So now the other end of the scale. Don't send the same email to everyone on your list.
Yeah. So what I mean by this, I'm not saying every email either. I'm just saying you've got to do some form of segmentation. Maybe a newsletter style email might go out to everyone, and that's fine. But other areas is, for example, I've got a client at the moment that sells like ketogenic food, low carb food. Right. Now we might do an email promoting bread, but there's no point in sending that out to people in the last week that's already bought bread. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's about, okay, who in the list do we want this to go to? Is there any list that we want to cross-sell to, upsell to, based on their buying behaviours? So this email that we did about bread, we sent it out to probably about 8% of the list, people that we know has not bought bread in the last 7 days. And in 24 hours, we got that email revenue backed up to about £3,000 worth of sales in 24 hours of sending out a bread. And, a loaf of bread is not that expensive. So it worked. But it's understanding the message in the email and who that needs to go to make it as specific, and coming back to personalisation again, as possible. Yeah. It's important to make sure you've got lists set up in there. I've just actually been introduced to a new email platform called Klaviyo, and it's really good at integrating with, if you've got an e-commerce system on your website, and it literally looks at, who bought what else could they sell to into the product range that you've got. It's amazing the intel that it gives you. Yeah. And it's about just looking at that and deciding, okay, let's become more segmented and personalised to get the right email in front of the right person at the right time.
Good tip, I like that. And then our second don't is, I like this as well, don't go overboard.
Yeah. So we've all probably been accustomed to receiving an email. it comes through into your inbox, and you've actively got to then download the images to see the email. And at first it just looks like loads of missing boxes. You might see a tiny bit of text, and automatically you think in your mind, this is a marketing promotional email.
Yeah.
So it's not going too overboard with putting, images in, video from your side, Josh. That's very hard in email campaigns. One, because it can, slow it down. Mm-hmm. Two, it can't naturally play in an email, so you've got to be diverted somewhere else. So it's about keeping it simple. I'm not saying don't put images in, and coming back to obviously the HTML and plain text area, but it's about, not going overboard with 5 different call to actions when you actually just wanting them to make one, over bombarding with images, graphics, animations. I think more simple the better.
Do you know how the impact of that in terms of the likelihood of an email being delivered to the spam folder? Mm-hmm. I imagine there's lots of different factors that influence that, but can going overboard on your email? Yeah,
it can do, especially your deliverability couldn't go down as well, because some email boxes only allow a certain kind of size of email to be received. And again, if you're putting a lot of images in there, it's going to bulk up the size of that email to be delivered. Mm-hmm. So for example, I used to work for a company that was based in the maritime industry. So whenever I was doing a lot of email marketing, I had to expect that most of those contacts would be out at sea and not having the best internet speed that was pulling it off.
Of course.
So there's no point in us doing an email full of, pictures and buttons and JavaScript when really it's probably not even going to be able to load their site. So you had to keep it as simple as possible. And again, that's not about not going overboard and understanding your audience and how they're going to be receiving it as well.
Yeah, I like that. What about this question, Josh, about videos then as part of newsletters? Because I guess it's the kind of thing that you'll have seen when people do it. Do you think it works? Do you think it doesn't, kind of including a video as part of an email shot?
I think, the complications of trying to put a lot of data into an email is one of the reasons we've kind of shied away from it for so long. I have seen it done well. I think people just use a thumbnail and then use that as a redirect through. But yeah, you got to just keep it, like you said, keep it simple. And if you want someone to watch a video, then don't try and shoehorn in 3 or 4 other images and different calls to actions. Just keep it, that's the video, that's a feature of that email. Let's just keep it to that and try and get somebody onto that video and leave it for another email for everything else.
Yeah, okay. I've got a few kind of questions that I've been amassing as we've been chatting.
Of course.
You mentioned about you've just started or you've just discovered a new platform. Mm-hmm. How important do you think it is to use a platform? If there's people that think, actually, I could probably just manage all this from within like my Outlook or within my Gmail account or something like that. Is that realistic in any way?
You can, if you've got a really small data list, you can, but the only downside of that is you've got then no idea who's opened it and who's clicked on it.
Yeah.
So you've got no reporting data, which you'd hopefully then make decisions on, for your next email. So I would always say, there's so many platforms out there and cheap ones as well. Even like free ones. One great one that I use for a lot of clients for people that I've got under, I think it's 1,000 contacts. I use MailerLite. It's an amazing platform. You can even do automations in there, and you don't have to pay any cost if you've got under 1,000 contacts. Now, most new businesses don't have, over 1,000 contacts. So that's fantastic. But then you can go up into, the bigger boys, such as, ActiveCampaign. There's HubSpot's email marketing system, that's very expensive. And most platforms, the charge either goes from the amount of emails you want to send in a month or the amount of subscribers you've got.
Right.
So usually platforms are based their pricing on one of those factors. But yeah, the newest one that I've come across, which is Klaviyo, that's an amazing platform, especially for B2C style emails, just the amount of kind of segmentation and data you can get, which integrates straight from your WordPress website into, your email software. It just, it streams ahead.
Sounds really, really clever.
I'd put another vote in for MailerLite. Yeah. I mean, from a beginner's point of view, with a fairly small database, I found that so intuitive, just to get your first email out there. And the amount of reporting and how easy it was to make sort of head to tail of the reports you got was fantastic. So from our perspective, if you haven't done any yet, that's a great one to trial, isn't it, before you pay for a bigger service. I know
MailChimp's a popular one. And it was kind of at the forefront of email marketing when email marketing became a thing. I shy away from it because I don't think the deliverability through MailChimp's as good as other platforms. Obviously, they've got their own domain, they've got their own, systems and, the technical side. I've just actually tried a new platform called Cleverreach, and that's because I had a massive data list, and I'm talking, about 25,000 data subscribers that I needed to work with, and that was a great tool for that because it was one of the cheapest and it got one of the highest kind of deliverability scores out of the all different platforms. So it's about doing your research a little bit, but yeah, if you're starting out, MailerLite, fantastic. I use that for probably 80% of my clients at this moment in time.
Right. Okay. Cool. This might be something that we all kind of want to bowl some opinion in on, but how often should you send? Whether it's a newsletter, whether it's a sales e-shop, whatever it might be, this might be an unanswerable question, but what is you touched on there about having a client that wants to send or pretty much every day. Some people once a month. I'm one of those. I get quite annoyed if I feel like I'm being bugged by someone a little bit too much, and I guess everyone's got a different threshold as to where that is. But for me, I struggle to see anything more than once a week being the right side of the line.
I'd only say it could be daily if you was, a heavy, selling, product-based B2C business. Because there's, more things that you can talk about. I'm sure you're accustomed to subscribing to things like, ASOS, and an email comes through every day and things like that. But yeah, the most I do for any of my clients at the moment is once a week.
Right. Most
of my clients is like a once a month newsletter and then maybe an odd campaign here and there. But I'd always say to people, just try and stay consistent. And again, it doesn't have to be that everyone in your list receives the one email a week. It might be, I'm going to send this targeted email and to this segment of list, and vice versa each week. And again, it's about knowing what your business is, what you're offering, what your audience wants, and how they're going to react.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think a couple of times a month for me. There are a couple of shops where I quite enjoy looking at, like, when the new stock, when they bring it in, and what they have to say about their products. And they send it out a couple of times a month. And for me, that's enough. If it comes through in the morning, I'm having a coffee, I'll sit and read it because I'm not bombarded. But there are some of them where it's like every single day. I'm like, no, they get deleted straight away. Or most of them get unsubscribed.
Yeah, it's getting your timings right as well. Not just the amount, but, the time that email is going to be sent. And it's understanding again when your audience is going to be probably the most, free to read that email. Yep.
You're gonna love this topic that we're going to move on to now, which is your favourite R word, repurposing.
Yeah.
Where does repurposing fit within this? And I ask this in terms of specifically for me when I've kind of thought about. I'm creating like 1 or 2 blogs a week. I could very easily turn that into some kind of email newsletter or something like that without really having to do any extra work.
Absolutely.
And just link it then to the full blog article. So is that good practice, bad practice? Where do you see repurposing fitting in specifically with emails?
I'd say it's very good practice. Again, it's about, you've got one killer piece of content, why not repurpose that into different media formats? Email's the perfect opportunity for you to do that, whether you actually repurpose it into the actual email itself, or you just do an email to say, I've done this is where you go and read it. But yeah, even podcasts, sending out an email when a new podcast has been released, maybe some, top highlights from that podcast to get people to go and listen. Videos, again, if you're publishing something to like YouTube, you can, do something in an email to say, hey, we've kind of, this is what we've done, go and have a look. There's so much there in terms of emails that you can do for repurposing other areas of your content. And sometimes we'll plan emails based on social content for a week if we're focusing on a certain topic. For example, today of the day of recording, it's like International Women's Day. This week at 10X, we're doing quite a lot of social posts about an inspirational woman in the industry each day. Again, that can be pushed into an email and sent out to the audience as well. And maybe, they're not saying every day, but maybe one at the end of the week that kind of does a roundup of, these are all the people that we've kind of highlighted this week. It
does feel like the kind of area where maybe there is justification for, if you're kind of making, this is a special sort of set of content this week or something, that maybe that you're pledging, aren't you, to your audience, I'm going to send you something every day this week, but it's just for this week and it's for this reason that kind of help manage sort of people's expectations.
Yeah. That's when they'll decide, if not, do they want to unsubscribe? Is there just certain types of messages that they don't want to receive anymore?
Yeah.
So, offering that option as well.
Cool, great stuff. Anything else from your side?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Yeah, hopefully there's some top tips in there for email marketing.
Thank you very much. I feel like you've really carried us both on this one.
It's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for joining us. You can find all our episodes at content360.fm, where you can find out more about us and you can get in touch as well. We'll catch you next time on Content 360.